So I believe Portugal have reached the final of that, and they will play either, I believe, Spain or France in the final. Portugal beating Germany, the hosts, earlier this evening. Ronaldo scoring the winning goal, Florian Wirtz scoring for Germany. Of course, we've also got the Women's Euros 2025, where one would hope England will go some way to defending their title. But of course, if you've been following, it's been quite a turbulent week for the England women's team with a couple of shock retirements.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't say a bad performance, but obviously a defeat by Spain. And, you know, maybe it is the end of an era for the Lionesses. We've had a few years with a few good runs, but maybe that's now coming to an end. Who knows? One hopes not, but time will tell. We've of course got the revamped Club World Cup to come. In terms of English representation in that, there'll be Chelsea and Manchester City. I, for one, hope and am tipping Man City to go all the way should their key players come back from their injuries. But nevertheless, there's enough depth in there for some squad rotation. Certainly for the opening two games against weaker, no disrespect, weaker opposition. I wouldn't be surprised if Guardiola gives a run out to some of the younger players and the likes of Kusanov, Gonzalez, even play Marmouche on his own up front, to get more game time and, get the win, morale boosting wins. Once they get to the knockout stages, they all start facing some bigger teams. But otherwise, I am hoping come mid July, President Trump will be handing over the Club World Cup to our club captain. Will it be Ruben Diaz or Bernardo Silva or whoever? Yeah, that's about it in terms of summer football. Though there is one thing that needs to be mentioned. A piece of good news for both of us, I suppose, given our connections to the town of Oldham. And that is after a 3-year exile from the Football League, Oldham Athletic, in the most dramatic of circumstances, won promotion back to the Football League, beating Southend United 3-2 after extra time at Wembley. And I was fortunate enough to be there at the game. Got to meet Joe Royle, former Man City player and manager, of course, former Oldham manager, of course, former Everton manager and player, of course. Um, and, it was a great game, and it's a great thing for the town as well, with the redevelopment money that's coming in to redevelop the area around the stadium, create a new sports hub to develop younger talent. It's a great morale boosting victory, not just for the club but for the town. And, congratulations to Oldham Athletic, and of course, it has to be said, it's their first victory at Wembley Stadium in their entire history, in their entire 130-year history. So yeah, well done to Oldham Athletic.
Yeah, of course. I am thrilled for Oldham. I don't follow them as much as probably I should, but I always like to see them do well. From obviously I was born in Oldham, so of course I like to see them do well. I was very saddened when they were relegated from the Football League, and I thought it was the beginning of the end really for Oldham. I didn't see a way forward. I didn't see how they were ever going to get back in the Football League, considering how they were playing at the time. But they've done it, and yeah, as my co-host said, it was in very dramatic fashion. They went 2-1 down in extra time, only then to win 3-2. Um, I was I managed to I was in work, but obviously, like I said, I live in Oldham. I'm from I don't yeah, technically do live in Oldham. I'm from Oldham, and a lot of the residents where I work in the care home are also from Oldham, and our Oldham fans. So they wanted to watch the game. So I managed to put the game on for them, and I watched the game with them, and we cheered them on, and the residents were just as thrilled as I was when the final whistle went and Oldham got promoted. It was an amazing amazing to watch. It was an amazing day, and I am very thrilled for the town of Oldham, for the Oldham Athletic, the Oldham Athletic team themselves, the players, the manager, um, the staff who work at Oldham Athletic, just everyone. Um, yeah, it's nice to have some good news in a time where there isn't a lot of good news going about. So yeah, but I think that's about it for the football talk. I believe we've covered everything we wanted to cover in terms of football. So um, I think we should move on to our. I don't think there's anything else really that we said we were going to talk about apart from football and our next subject. And this is going to be our main subject of the night because I do have a feeling we're going to talk about this in length. Um, at least for a good hour, I would imagine, because there's a few different things to talk about. But before we get into the main part of this subject that we're going to talk about, it's of course going to be about wrestling and WWE, and we're going to talk about everything that's going on in WWE at the moment, the state of WWE, the just everything that's been going on in WWE. But let's touch on something good that happened in WWE recently. Well, there's been a few good things. Of course, we knew that Roxanne Perez and Julia had been promoted to the main roster. We already knew that, but then recently, Stephanie Vaquer has already as she's also been promoted to the main roster. And in her debut match on Raw, she was in a triple threat match to qualify for the Money in the Bank, and she qualified for the Money in the Bank. So not only did Stephanie Vaquer qualify, so did Julia as well. Sorry, I don't know why I'm struggling to speak. So yeah, so that's good. I'm glad that she's up to the main roster. But another bit of good news as well that happened very recently, NXT this week. So last night, Mariah May, or whatever her name is going to be in WWE. I hope they keep it as Mariah May, but we know WWE, they like to change names. So
No, it is Mariah May.
So I don't know what it's, well, okay. So Mariah May made her debut in WWE and NXT. She finally has made it to WWE. She has been a big fan of WWE. She's made no bones about the fact that she's a big fan of WWE. There's videos out there of her attending the Royal Rumble in 2019 and getting really hype about lots of the different superstars. She's made no bones about the fact that she's a massive Triple H fan, and she's finally made it to WWE, and I bet she's absolutely buzzing. And I look forward to seeing what she's going to do. It looks like she's going straight after the NXT Championship, which is insane to do when you've just debuted, but it looks like that's what she's going to do. But I'm interested in seeing what she does, because I don't watch AEW, but I did keep an eye on that rivalry between Toni Storm and Mariah May. And my God, did Mariah May put on some amazing performances during that rivalry, not only in the ring but on the mic as well. So I'm interested to see what she does in NXT. I'm interested to see if she's going to be in NXT for long. That will be the interesting thing. I don't see her being in NXT for long. I do think she'll have a short stint as the NXT Women's Champion, very similar to Stephanie Vaquer, and then I think she'll be promoted. I don't see her being in NXT long. But yeah, Mariah May, WWE. Would you like to say anything?
No, nothing to add. I just think, as you all know, I'm a big fan of Julia, and I'm glad to see her get elevated to the main roster, and I must say, in very quick fashion as well for a few of them. And that's obviously going to lead into the next topic that we will talk about. In terms of Mariah May, again, if she's there in NXT, no doubt we'll see her in the main roster soon enough. But that seems about the only good thing I can say about WWE at the moment.
Yeah, I mean yeah. I thought we'd start off with something good before we get into all the bad stuff, but yeah, it's difficult to really say much good stuff about WWE at the moment. It's hard to even watch it at the moment, to be honest. I really didn't enjoy Raw this week. I enjoyed the opening match with Stephanie McCurr. Why can't I think who was in the match with her? But anyway, that opening match I thought was great. Um, you know, glad that Stephanie McCurr got the win. But apart from that, obviously I enjoyed Punk's promo at the start as well. I always enjoy Punk. I'm a big fan of Punk. So, and I did enjoy the main event to a certain extent. I just didn't like the ending. Um, but I said to you after after we found out who won the main event, and this is a spoiler alert in case you've not watched Raw yet. Although it's hard to really keep the results secret these days with social media and stuff like that, so you've probably already had it spoiled. But still, spoiler alerts in case you haven't had it spoiled. Um, the triple threat was AJ Styles, CM Punk, and El Grande Americano, and you think with that lineup, you think, okay, it's going to be AJ Styles, he might win. Might be CM Punk, he might win. Of course, I said I was fairly confident that CM Punk was going to win. My co-host said, no, I think El Grande Americano is going to win. I said, absolutely no chance. He's in a match with AJ Styles and CM Punk. There is no chance one of them is going to get pinned by El Grande Americano. Well, how wrong I was. Of course, Seth Rollins got involved, because he's still in this rivalry with CM Punk. How long that's going to last, I don't know. And then with the distraction, AJ Styles got involved as well to try and get rid of Seth, and then he goes to get back in the ring, do the phenomenal forearm, and El Grande Americano did the headbutt. He looked like he slapped AJ on the chest more than he headbutted him, and then got the pin off that. And I said, after that happened, I said, El Grande Americano pinning AJ Styles just epitomises the state that WWE is in right now. And what do I mean by that? I mean, unless you've been living under a rock, you'll know what I mean. But what I mean by that is the releases that have been happening recently, and a couple of releases happened before the most recent ones, and I didn't think much of it because I didn't really care about the people that had been released. And then this past week, we find out that not long after Saturday Night Main Event, not long after he had that big match with John Cena, we find out that R-Truth gets released. A man that has been in WWE for over 20 years. Yes, I know people have told me that he's not been named R-Truth for over 20 years, but the man himself, Ron Killings, has been in WWE for over 20 years. Yeah, okay, he had that short stint where he went to TNA, but then he came back to WWE. So in my opinion, he's been in WWE for over 20 years. And to do that to somebody that's been in the WWE for 20 years, that has been a loyal servant to WWE, that has put with all the shit that has been thrown at him, all the shit that he's had to do for WWE, and then they do that to him. I just think it's utterly disrespectful. And I get, I've had many conversations with my co-host about this, and I get that from a business standpoint, maybe he wasn't the best person to keep around, but. And I get that it's a business, and I get that money matters, but it's not the only thing that should matter. R-Truth was brilliant to keep around for staff morale. as a lot and superstar morale, as a lot of the superstars have said since our Truth's release. Because I tell you what, I've never seen a reaction for somebody's release as big as what the reaction has been to our Truth's release. I've seen at least 20, maybe 30 plus tweets from superstars tweeting about our Truth's release and how heartbroken they are, how sad it is, how they're going to miss him. I've never seen such a big reaction before. Um, and that just says everything that you need to know about how loved our Truth was. But the fact of the matter is, yeah, okay, from a business standpoint, maybe it makes sense because he doesn't really make the WWE a lot of money. He's not used a hell of a lot. But from a superstar morale point of view, you know, like I said, as a lot of them have said in their tweets, he was never in a bad mood. He was the funniest person to be around, and he always made everybody's day, and he always cheered everybody up. That to me is massively important to have, because if you don't have that, superstars are gonna, they might be happy a lot of the time, but they might not be. If you don't have somebody that's gonna cheer you up, if you don't have somebody that's gonna help staff and superstar morale, superstars are not gonna perform to their to the 100% that they could do if they were happier. They're not gonna, they're gonna struggle with their mental health more. You know, that's just two things. There's many other things, and I think that staff morale, superstar morale, is just as important as the money aspect. I get from the money aspect that maybe our Truth was one of the ones that needed to go because of that reason, but I also think that getting rid of somebody like our Truth, like the amount of reaction that it's had with all these tweets, it's quite clear that he's going to be missed. It's quite clear that a lot of the superstars are heartbroken. It's quite clear that it's going to affect staff morale, superstar morale. So, I just think it's disgusting, and I hope that somehow that he can come back at some point. I mean, there is already. I mean, on Raw there was like 4 or 5 different chants of "We Want Truth," and I do think that that's going to continue over the coming months, and I think the chants are going to get louder and louder and louder. Whether that'll work, I have no idea. It probably won't. But you know, it is what it is, unfortunately, and I just I struggle to have any love for WWE at the moment, and that is somebody that has been watching WWE since the late 90s, pretty consistently. And I've never really said that I don't love WWE, even in the darkest times when a man who I shouldn't really name was taking WWE down basically because he just didn't have a clue. He was out of touch. I'm sure you all knew who I'm talking about. But one thing I will say is that if that man was still in charge, not saying that he should be, but if that man was still in charge, and I don't like the man, but if that man was still in charge, our Truth would still have a job, because that man at one time said the only man that is safe from release, the only man that I will never ever release is our Truth. He said that. Unfortunately, he is not unfortunately. Fortunately, he isn't in charge anymore for many, many different reasons. But if he still was, our Truth would still have a job, and that is the truth. Um, you know, pun intended. But yeah, I could go on and on about this R2 situation because I feel so passionately about it. I get people's points that they've made when it comes from a financial point of view. Don't get me wrong, of course I do, and I understand that it's a business. I just feel like he deserved more loyalty than what he has received. Surely there was lots of other superstars they could have got rid of before him. Like, surely there's other superstars that are being used the same as he is, not very often, that are making the WWE literally no money like he isn't. Well, actually, technically, before they released him, they released this Ron Cena shirt, and that is making them a hell of a lot of money because it sold very, very well. So, but yeah, that wasn't enough. I'm sure there's other superstars that were making WWE even less than he was that they could have released first. Like, like I said, I understand it from a financial point of view to an extent, but I just think there was other people they could have released first if they wanted to release some funds. I don't know. I don't know. I don't understand it really. But like I said, I could talk about the R2 situation for ages. But I'll let my co-host come in here and have his say about it.
Well, I need to add something because I am reading an interesting piece of news. According to, I believe it's Jonathan Coachman on his podcast. It's a story that's been carried by a few outlets. If you were to Google it right now, according to him and according to a WWE insider, R-Truth was actually offered an extension, but at a much lower salary, which he turned down, which is extremely interesting.
Uh,
So now that you know that, now that we know that, does it change our views on the situation somewhat?
um, for me, no, because I feel like they did that purposely because they knew that he wouldn't take the pay cut. So they knew that he would go anyway. Um, I understand why they would offer him a pay cut because obviously he doesn't do a lot. He's not used a lot. He's used as in backstage segments as comic relief. I understand all that, but I think for me, I think fair play to R-Truth for not taking the pay cut. He knows his worth. He knows what he's worth, and he knows that he shouldn't really need to take a pay cut. Not that I mean, we don't know what the pay cut was. The pay cut could have. I mean, I don't know how much R2's on. Let's just say he's on. Let's just say he's on 200 grand a month, or however they work it out. I don't know if they get paid monthly or what it is. I'm not. I don't know. But let's just say he's on 200 grand. How whatever, right? And let's just say we don't know what the pay cut was. The pay cut could have been 100 grand, and he was only now on 100 grand, which is still a lot of money. But when you've been on 200 grand, 100 grand pay cut is quite a lot. We don't know. Maybe I believe you know because of what we know of R-Truth and because of what people have said he's like backstage, and that he's a humble guy and that he's not really money orientated or anything like that. It had to have been a substantial pay cut for him to say, look, no. For him to walk away from WWE, a place that he has been, whether it's been under the name of R-Truth or whatever else, the man himself, Ron Killings, has been in WWE, been with WWE for over 20 years. For him to walk away from that, it must have been a substantial pay cut. My opinion stays the same. I think R-Truth should have been offered a contract, no questions asked, in my opinion. I get from a financial point of view that might not be the best thing to do, but that's just my opinion. I do think that's what he should have been offered, but it is what it is. It hasn't changed my opinion on the situation. It might have changed your opinion. I'll let you say what you have to say.
Um, it's a difficult one because I liked R-Truth, and I do feel sad that it's come to an end this way. But I think we have to accept the reality that this is now a different era for WWE, and the sort of sympathies or affection there might have been for certain wrestlers, behind the scenes or with people at the top are not necessarily the same anymore. And I just think realistically, it is a money business. And even if we had one T-shirt that did sell very well, in the past week or so, overall, let's be honest, even this year, R-Truth's role has been diminishing in the previous months. He's been making fewer and fewer and fewer appearances. Yes, he's had injuries, but ultimately, at the end of the day, he is the wrong side of 50. He's not going to be a main eventer or a mid carder anymore. And, it appears WWE want to move people up the ranks, from NXT. So, where are they going to have room for all these people? So, unfortunately, excuse me, R-Truth
God.
God,
Well,
yeah. Our truth, it's just a case of simply they looked at him and they thought, look, he's well liked, but sentiment can't get in the way of business. And it's kind of a bit like in the football, sometimes you have to make a ruthless decision that fans may not like. I can think of one example at my own club, with Kevin De Bruyne. But the reality is, in Kevin De Bruyne's case, he was too injury prone, he was getting older, and he just wasn't that good anymore. Let's the truth be told. And you can't just keep people on for the sake of sentiment, unfortunately. Now, would the WWE of old kept him on? Possibly. Probably. But it's clear that TKO, and it has to be emphasized, TKO are clearly wanting to do things in a very, very, very different way. And unfortunately for our truth, and indeed the others that have been shown the door, like Dakota Kai, like Shayna Baszler, like Braun Strowman, um, you
Carlito.
know, sorry,
Carlito.
Carlito. Yeah, I mean, not too fussed about Carlito, no offense to him, but you know, unfortunately, there just isn't a place for these guys, uh, and it does look as though they are really pushing a lot of the talent from NXT.
Yeah.
So the way I see it is that simply it was a case of, and that's probably why they offered him a lower salary. Whether that was right or wrong is not for me to say, but ultimately, you know, if that is true, then WWE or TKO, I should say. Just give me a second. Just want to have a drink. TKO, it would appear, did want to keep him, but they realised, and they probably. I wouldn't be surprised if the conversation that me and you are having here and what's being said was said to him. And it was a case of, and look, he has every right to turn it down. He has every right to turn around and say, look, I've been in this business now for 20 plus years. I've been in this company alone for nearly 20 years. And this is what you're doing to me. You're saying to me, you want to just keep me on for the sake of keeping me on, but you're just going to give me a substantially lower salary. What's the point? You know, I may be older, but I can still wrestle. I can still do it in the ring. If you're not going to give me the money, then you know what? It's been a pleasure. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go somewhere else. And I think he's done the right thing. I'll be honest. I think he's done the right thing.
Yeah. I mean, you.
At the end of the day, yeah, we would have wanted him to stay on. And if the story is true, then it does shed a bit of light on the whole circumstances. It wasn't a case of WWE didn't want to renew his contract. Clearly, if this story is to be believed, they did. They, they offered him substantially lower than what he's been receiving. He made a choice. He probably thought to himself, you know what, I can still wrestle a couple more years. If WWE aren't going to give me the money that I want, then you know what? I'll go and have a chat with AEW and see what they say. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in AEW and they give him the same salary that he received in WWE. Possibly even a push for the AEW title. And frankly, I think he'll be welcomed with open arms in AEW. You know, especially by the people there who he worked with in WWE. So that's my view on it. I think ultimately it's a case of, you know, maybe it's not a bad thing. You know, he was, yeah, he was being treated as this gimmicky character. It entertained people, but you know, me and you had this conversation before. We felt he would have been worthy of a title run, if only a brief one, to kind of add to the character. But it looks as though that was never going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, look,
I'm not suggesting that AEW are going to put the title on him, but you know, he's a former TNA slash NWA world champion. He's had a Hall of Fame worthy career. You know, there's no reason why they wouldn't give him an opportunity in AEW.
yeah,
So I think my prediction is he will end up in AEW because obviously, TNA, there's the whole WWE connection thing there. But somehow I don't think he wants to end up in NXT.
it's true. We'll see what the future holds for our truth.
I mean,
I,
stranger things have happened. WWE could still do a U-turn
yeah,
and say, okay, we made a mistake. You know, how much is it that you want? Well, not like that. They'll just say to him, look, realistically, you're not going to be in the main event. So we can't pay you a main event salary. What is it you want? They might do that, but they would have not gone, he would have not gone to the effort to announce it publicly like that if that was going to be the case. So I don't think there's going to be a U-turn, sadly. And I do think his most likely destination will be TNA. Sorry, AEW.
yeah. Like I said, we'll see.
I don't know what your thought is.
We'll see what the future holds for our truth. I mean, I don't want him to go to AEW. I don't like AEW. I'd rather him go to TNA. But we'll see. We'll see. I expect it'll be interesting to see. Um, but yeah, I also saw. I think it was either yesterday or day before. That Valhalla, aka Sarah Logan, she's also been released. Again. I mean, she's just been off having her second baby. And she was getting ready, getting in shape, ready to come back. She was in the gym, and she was informed that, we don't want you back, basically. So yeah, I mean, her husband is still in WWE. I can't remember whether it's Eric or Ivar. I can't remember which one's her husband, but one of the Viking Raiders is her husband anyway. And so yeah, that's another one. But I've not heard anything else. But just before I get on to the next thing I want to talk about, Genetic ACGT says, I noticed the matches in the week before special events, WrestleMania excluded, tend to be fairly boring. Since Money in the Bank is coming up, maybe that's the reason. Possibly. I just don't like how Raw seems to be ending the same way every week at the moment with Seth Rollins' faction standing in the ring, you know, having beaten somebody up, usually Punk, usually Sammy. I just don't like that. I think it's very boring. I think it's lazy booking. And I'm not really a fan of Seth Rollins' faction. I'm a fan of Seth Rollins. I'm not a fan of what they're doing with him at the moment at all. He also said, unfortunately, companies aren't loyal to their workers and independent contractors. WWE is a business, so they use the wrestlers up and spit them out. It's very true. It's very true. Um, but the next thing I want to talk about is seemingly what's happening at the moment especially after the R-Truth release. We've had The Miz remove everything WWE related from his Twitter. We've had Gunter remove everything WWE related from his Twitter. And now today, a close friend of Roman Reigns has come out and said that Roman has said to him that he is done with WWE. Very interesting developments here. What does it mean that for the Miz and Gunter removing everything WWE related? What does it mean? Are they next on the chopping block? Are they going to be released next? Are they doing this in protest because of what's happened to R-Truth? Wouldn't surprise me with the Miz. We know the Miz and R-Truth are very close. I don't know about Gunter. I don't know. And what is this with Roman Reigns? Is he unhappy with what's happening in WWE at the moment? Is he unhappy with the amount of releases that are happening? Is he, what's happening? A close friend comes out and says that if they lose Roman, that is a hell of a big loss. He is pretty much the biggest star they have at the moment. He is the biggest draw, and he always gets the biggest reactions. Interesting to see what happens from now with Gunter, with the Miz, with Roman. Interesting to see if anything else happens, if anybody else removes everything WWE related from their Twitter. I don't know what's happening in WWE right now.
I think it will blow over. To be honest, I think
I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's making the superstars unhappy. I don't know if it's the releases, if there's something else going on backstage that we don't know about. It just seems very, very weird that in the space of since R-Truth's release, I'm not saying it's R-Truth related, but what I'm saying is it's just weird that ever since R-Truth's release, we've had the Miz remove everything WWE related, we've had Gunter remove everything WWE related, and now we've had Roman saying to a close personal friend of his that he is done with WWE. That's all happened since R-Truth's release, and that was what? It was only a few days ago. So that's happened in the space of only a few days. I don't know what this means. My co-host just said he thinks it'll blow over. I don't think it's going to blow over as easy as what people may think, because I think something big is happening backstage. I think something big is happening, and I think that is what is making superstars unhappy. I don't necessarily think it's fully to do with R-Truth's release. I do think that's part of it, because he was very, very much, he was very loved. He was very, very loved. And it's not all to do with that, though. I do believe that there's something else going on that we have no idea about. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the next couple of months with WWE. I will continue to watch, but I will continue to watch, but I don't know. I just hope that they change it up soon, because I am getting relatively bored with what is happening at the moment. I am looking forward to Money in the Bank. I always enjoy the Money in the Bank matches, and I do believe the other matches that are on the card as well are going to be interesting. I am actually looking forward to the AAA PLE as well, which I'm planning on watching as well on Saturday. So it'll be interesting to see how good them pay-per-views or PLEs are at the weekend. But yeah.
I mean, the way I see it, of course, his close friends and people in the locker room are going to be upset about it, and they're going to voice, and they're entitled to voice their disapproval. But ultimately, unless they're going to walk out from their roles, what else are they going to do about it? I mean, I can't see for one moment that they're going to fire, Roman Reigns or Gunter. They are easily two of the biggest superstars in the company.
That's true. That is true. I mean, I don't know. I just find it very interesting that this has all happened relatively quickly over the last few days. Is this the end of it now? You know, are we going to have more superstars do what the Miz and Gunter did to their Twitter? Or are we going to have more superstars come out and say they're done with WWE? What I don't know. It's very interesting to see. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I mean, it might blow over, but I just don't see it happening because I do believe that there's something bigger happening backstage that we have no idea about. Um, all I can say is watch this space and let's see. That's all I can say. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's sad really because I've enjoyed WWE consistently um, for quite a few years now. I wasn't a massive fan of the very long reign of Roman Reigns. Um, I sort of understand why they had him hold the title for so long because he was making the money, he was very popular, the reactions that he got and all that sort of stuff. I get it to a certain extent, but I do believe that it didn't need to be as long. It was getting boring at the end. But apart from that, I enjoyed everything else. Um, I just don't know. I don't know what's going to happen from here. I'm very interested to see. I'm very interested to see what happens. But that's really all I have to say on the releases. I'm trying to think if there's anything else WWE related that I wanted to mention or wrestling related. I don't think there is. I think I've really said everything I want to say about what's happening in WWE at the moment. Yeah. Anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to add? Wigglytuff? Hello? Okay, I don't know where he's gone. But yeah, no, I don't really have anything else to add. To be honest. Let me know your opinions. You can't do it on Twitch, but on YouTube, you'll be able to put in the comments down below what you think and your opinions of the R-Truth situation, of what you think is going on in WWE at the moment. There's also the situation to do with WrestleMania 42. We still don't know where that's going to be. There's various different rumors. One being that it's going to go back to Las Vegas, the other being that it's going to be in Saudi Arabia. There's even a rumor about it going to London. It'll be very interesting to see. I predict that it is just going to go back to Las Vegas. That's what the majority of the rumors are saying. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Saudi Arabia already have the Royal Rumble next year. I don't see them having WrestleMania as well. I don't see them doing both in the same year. But we will see. We will see. Wigglytuff? Hello? Okay, so he's still not there. Genetic KCGT says, who is El Grande Americano? I have no idea who he could possibly be. Well, on Raw this week, he was wearing Chad Gable's boots. Don't know what that means. I don't know if that if he borrowed Chad Gable's boots for whatever reason. I have no idea. But he was definitely wearing Chad Gable's boots. So maybe that's a clue. Are you there, Wigglytuff? Okay, he's not there. I don't know. what's happened to him. Okay, well, this hasn't been a particularly long one. I thought it was going to be a lot longer, but I don't really have anything else to talk about. I've talked about everything I want to talk about, but you could do if you want. Genetic. I don't know. I don't know whether he's fell asleep or what. He didn't say he was going away, so I don't know. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the episode 6 of What's the News. I do apologise that these are getting shorter, but we can only make them last for as long as as long as we, as we've got stuff to talk about, and really, that's all we had planned to talk about. So, the football, and then what's going on in WWE. So we've covered everything. I don't know when the next stream will be. I don't really want to promise that it's going to be in the next couple of weeks or in a month or whatever, because I don't always keep to the promises. So all I'll say is there definitely will be another episode of What's the News, and it'll be coming up at some point, hopefully soon. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and I shall speak to you soon. Bye bye.